Helping Barron Trump cost her a job, but what she gained was beyond her wildest dreams. Emma Carter didn't dream of working in a diner at 23 years old, with a psychology degree collecting dust in her cramped studio apartment. She had once envisioned a career helping others, perhaps counseling young people through tough times. But life, as it often does, had other plans. Bills piled up faster than opportunities, and the Cherry Hill Diner in downtown Des Moines became her lifeline. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid enough to keep the lights on and her fridge somewhat stocked. Her days were a blur of clinking dishes, coffee refills, and tired smiles. Emma had become familiar with the regulars. Mr. Henderson, who always asked for extra bacon, or the young couple who split a milkshake every Friday night. The diner had its charm, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she was treading water, waiting for something, anything, to change. One late afternoon, the usual rhythm of the diner shifted. A black SUV pulled up outside, and two men in sharp suits stepped out, flanking a tall, lanky teenager who looked awkward in the way only teenagers could. As they entered, the chatter in the diner quieted, heads turned, and whispers started. Emma glanced at the trio, recognizing the young face from the news, but she didn't react. Instead, she tightened her apron and approached their booth with her usual politeness. The boy, Barron Trump, seemed uncomfortable under the weight of everyone's stares. His shoulders were hunched, his hands fidgeting with the hem of his jacket. The men with him whispered something, glancing around the room like hawks scanning for predators. Emma could sense the boy's discomfort, the quiet anxiety written across his face. "Hi there," she said softly, her voice calm and unassuming. "What can I get for you today?" Barron glanced up, his expression guarded but grateful for her neutrality. He mumbled an order, just a soda, and she nodded without missing a beat, jotting it down before disappearing to the kitchen. Emma wasn't one for fanfare, and she certainly wasn't about to treat him any differently than any other diner patron. But whispers were rippling through the room. Phones were subtly raised, snapping photos or recording. Emma returned with his drink, placing it gently in front of him. "Let me know if you need anything else," she said, offering a small, kind smile. His shoulders seemed to relax just a bit. The men with Barron exchanged a glance, then gestured for him to move to a more private corner booth. Emma noticed the way Barron hesitated, his reluctance clear. Without thinking twice, she stepped in. "That booth over there is the quietest one we have," she said, pointing to the far corner, away from prying eyes. "I can make sure no one bothers you." The men looked at her skeptically but seemed to relent. Barron nodded and moved to the corner booth, where Emma quickly brought him a fresh drink and checked to ensure the blinds were drawn just enough to block any outside cameras. For the next 20 minutes, Emma kept a close eye on the situation. Some patrons grumbled about losing their view, but Emma didn't care. She focused on ensuring Barron felt as normal as possible. By the time they left, he gave her a small, almost imperceptible nod of thanks. She smiled back, as though to say, "You're welcome." But Emma couldn't have known that her simple act of kindness was about to change everything. The shift ended like any other. Emma untied her apron, her fingers aching from the constant rush of the day. She grabbed her tips, a modest pile of crumpled bills, and stuffed them into her worn-out wallet. The whispers about Barron Trump's visit lingered in the air, but Emma brushed them off. The boy was just another customer who deserved a little humanity. That was all. By the time she got home, exhaustion had settled deep in her bones. Her studio apartment felt lonelier than usual. A single bulb lit the space, illuminating her second-hand couch and a small table where a half-finished puzzle sat untouched for weeks. Emma dropped her bag by the door and collapsed onto the couch, replaying the day in her mind. The next morning, She walked into the diner like clockwork. The usual hum of morning chatter and clinking plates filled the room, but something felt off. Her manager, a wiry man named Greg with a perpetual frown etched into his face, stood near the counter. He was talking in hushed tones with a man in a suit, one of Barron Trump's security detail. Emma's stomach sank. She wasn't sure why, but something about Greg's expression felt wrong. As soon as the man left, Greg called her over, his tone sharp. "Emma, my office. Now." Her pulse quickened as she followed him. The tiny office smelled of stale coffee and printer ink, the walls plastered with outdated motivational posters. Greg motioned for her to sit, but didn't wait for her to settle before launching into his speech. "What were you thinking yesterday?" he snapped, his voice low but biting. "Thinking about what?" Emma asked, genuinely confused. "Don't play dumb." Moving that boy to the corner booth, drawing attention to the place. "It was reckless. This is a business, Emma, not a circus." Emma's heart pounded. "I wasn't trying to draw attention." He looked uncomfortable, so I helped him find a quieter spot. "That's all." Greg shook his head, leaning back in his creaky chair. "We've been getting calls all morning. People asking if Barron Trump was here, reporters wanting details. This isn't what we're about. We're a diner, not a media circus." She stared at him, incredulous. "Are you serious? I was just trying to help." "That's not the point," Greg shot back. "This kind of attention isn't good for business. I can't have this kind of distraction." The words that followed hit her like a punch to the gut. "I'm letting you go, Emma." Effective immediately. For a moment, Emma couldn't breathe. Fired? Over something so trivial? She felt anger rising in her chest but swallowed it back, knowing it wouldn't change anything. She grabbed her bag, her pride barely intact, and walked out without another word. The cold January air stung her face as she stepped onto the sidewalk. Tears threatened to spill, but she blinked them back, refusing to let herself cry in public. She needed to focus on what came next. Finding another job, figuring out how to pay rent and staying afloat. But as she walked home, a heavy sense of unfairness weighed on her chest. She had no idea the universe had other plans in motion, waiting to reveal itself in ways she couldn't yet imagine. Emma spent the rest of the day in a haze, the weight of losing her job pressing down on her like a storm cloud. She sat on her couch, scrolling through job listings on her old laptop, her fingers trembling with frustration. Every listing seemed to demand more experience or qualifications than she had. The anxiety bubbled inside her. Rent was due in less than 2 weeks, and her savings wouldn't cover much. She replayed the confrontation with Greg over and over in her mind. Had she really done something so wrong? All she'd done was show a little kindness. The more she thought about it, the more it felt like she was being punished for doing the right thing. Her anger mixed with hopelessness, creating a knot in her chest that wouldn't loosen. By evening, Emma's phone buzzed. She half expected it to be Greg, maybe reconsidering his decision, but it wasn't. Instead, it was her best friend, Tara. "Hey, you okay?" Tara's voice was soft, concerned. Emma hesitated before answering. "No, not really. I got fired today." "What? Why?" Tara's outrage was immediate. Emma explained everything, the encounter with Barron Trump, the whispers in the diner, and Greg's reaction. Tara listened quietly, only interrupting to mutter words of disbelief. "That's insane," Tara said finally. "You didn't do anything wrong, Em. If anything, you did something good. That kid probably needed someone to just treat him like a normal person." Emma sighed. "Yeah, well, good doesn't pay the bills." For a moment, there was silence on the line. Then Tara said something Emma hadn't expected. "You know, sometimes good does pay off, just not in the way you expect." Emma didn't know how to respond, so she simply thanked Tara and hung up. She appreciated her friend's optimism, but it felt far-fetched. Life hadn't exactly been throwing her many lifelines lately. As the hours dragged on, Emma found herself staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. She couldn't shake the feeling that her life was unraveling. The next morning, she woke up to the harsh light of day streaming through her window, her head pounding from the restless night. Another day of uncertainty stretched out before her. By late afternoon, just as Emma was debating whether to pawn her laptop for some quick cash, her phone rang. The number was unrecognizable, long, with too many digits to be local. She hesitated before answering, her thumb hovering over the screen. "Hello?" she said cautiously. "Is this Emma Carter?" A calm, professional voice asked. "Yes. Who's this?" she replied, her suspicion evident. "My name is Helen Marks," the woman said, her tone steady but warm. "I'm calling on behalf of someone who was at the diner yesterday. They were impressed with your kindness and wanted to discuss an opportunity with you." Emma froze, gripping the phone tighter. "Wait, what?" "We'd like to meet with you to explain further," Helen continued. "Would you be available tomorrow afternoon?" Emma's mind raced. Was this a prank? An elaborate scam? But Helen's voice carried a sincerity that was hard to dismiss. I guess," Emma stammered. "Where would this meeting be?" Helen gave her an address, an office building in the heart of downtown, and a time. "We'll see you then," she said before hanging up. Emma sat there, staring at her phone in disbelief. A strange mix of hope and fear coursed through her. She had no idea what awaited her at that meeting, but she knew one thing. This could be her chance to turn things around. But opportunities don't always come without risks, and Emma was about to step into a world she didn't fully understand. The next day, Emma stood outside the towering glass office building, her nerves stretched thin, dressed in the only semi-professional outfit she owned. A thrifted blazer and slacks that fit a little too snugly. She felt woefully out of place. The building loomed above her, its polished windows reflecting a version of herself she barely recognized. Taking a deep breath, she pushed through the revolving doors and approached the reception desk. "I'm here for a meeting with Helen Marks," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. The receptionist nodded and directed her to the 14th floor. Emma's heart pounded with each ding of the elevator as it climbed higher and higher. When the doors opened, she stepped into a sleek office space, where a woman in her early 40s with sharp features and an even sharper suit greeted her with a firm handshake. "You must be Emma," the woman said, her smile faint but genuine. "I'm Helen Marks. Thank you for coming." Emma followed Helen into a glass-walled conference room, her apprehension growing. Seated at the table was a man she didn't recognize, older, with salt and pepper hair and an air of quiet authority. Helen gestured for Emma to sit before taking her place beside him. "I'm sure you're wondering why you're here," Helen began, her tone calm but deliberate. "Let me explain. Yesterday, your actions at the diner caught the attention of someone important. They noticed the way you treated Barron Trump, not as a spectacle but as a person. That kind of compassion is rare these days." Emma blinked, unsure how to respond. "I just did what felt right," she said finally. Helen exchanged a glance with the man beside her, who gave a small nod. "Exactly," Helen said. "And that's why we're here. Mr. Franklin," she gestured to the man, "is a philanthropist who works closely with several initiatives aimed at supporting young people and fostering kindness in communities. He was at the diner yesterday and witnessed everything. He believes your approach is exactly what his organization needs." Emma's confusion deepened. "I'm sorry, but what does that have to do with me?" Mr. Franklin spoke for the first time, his voice steady but kind. "We're offering you a position, Emma. A chance to work with us, promoting and coordinating programs that encourage the kind of humanity you showed yesterday. It's a full-time role with a salary that I believe would more than cover your immediate concerns." Emma's breath caught in her throat. A job offer? Out of nowhere? She couldn't process it. "Why me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Because you didn't do it for recognition," Franklin replied. "You did it because it was the right thing to do. And that's exactly the kind of person we need." For a moment, Emma was speechless. The weight of the past 24 hours, the firing, the uncertainty, the fear, crashed over her all at once. This felt like a lifeline, but it was almost too good to be true. Helen leaned forward, sensing her hesitation. "We don't expect an answer right now. Take a day or two to think about it. If you accept, we'll provide all the details and support you need to get started." Emma nodded slowly, her mind racing. "Thank you," she said finally. "I'll think about it." She left the building in a daze, clutching the business card Helen had given her like it was a golden ticket. For the first time in what felt like forever, she felt a glimmer of hope. But with hope came doubt, and Emma couldn't help but wonder if she was ready for a change this big. Little did she know, accepting this offer would take her life in a direction she never could have predicted. One that would test her courage and redefine her purpose. That night, Emma sat in her apartment, the business card resting on the table in front of her like a question she didn't know how to answer. She had spent hours weighing the offer in her mind. The opportunity seemed incredible, almost too good to be true, but it also felt intimidating. What if she wasn't cut out for this kind of work? What if she failed? Her thoughts spiraled until she called Tara, her voice shaky but determined. "I need your advice," Emma began, explaining the unexpected meeting and the offer in painstaking detail. Tara listened intently, her response immediate and firm. "Emma, this is a sign. You've been waiting for something to change. And here it is. You can't let fear hold you back." Emma sighed, clutching the phone tightly. "But what if I mess it up? What if they regret giving me a chance?" "Then you'll learn from it," Tara replied. "But you won't know unless you try. You've already proven you have the heart for this. Let them see that." Emma felt a small wave of calm wash over her. Tara was right. She'd spent so long waiting for something to happen, and now that it had, she couldn't let self-doubt stop her. The next morning, Emma called Helen and accepted the position. Her voice trembled as she spoke, but Helen's warm congratulations made her feel like she was making the right choice. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Emma was introduced to the organization's mission and its various initiatives, each aimed at supporting communities through education, mentorship, and kindness-focused programs. Her role involved coordinating local outreach projects, ensuring that resources reached those who needed them most. Though the work was challenging, Emma found herself thriving in ways she hadn't anticipated. She connected with people from all walks of life, hearing stories of struggle and resilience that reminded her why she pursued psychology in the first place. For the first time in years, she felt like she was making a real difference. One of her first major projects involved working with a local shelter to create after-school programs for underprivileged kids. Emma poured her heart into the effort, staying late at the office and meeting with community leaders to ensure every detail was perfect. On the day of the program's launch, she watched as dozens of children arrived, their faces lighting up with excitement as they explored the new activities and resources available to them. Standing in the corner, Emma felt tears prick her eyes. This was what she'd always wanted, to help others, to be a part of something bigger than herself. And it all stemmed from that simple act of kindness at the diner. As months went by, Emma's story began to spread, inspiring others to embrace compassion in their own lives. She received letters and emails from strangers who'd heard about her journey, each one thanking her for showing that even the smallest acts of humanity could create ripples of change. But Emma's story wasn't just about her own transformation. It was about the lessons she had learned along the way. Kindness isn't about grand gestures or expecting something in return. It's about doing what's right, even when no one is watching. It's about understanding that the smallest moments of empathy can have the biggest impacts, often in ways we may never see. Emma's life had changed because she chose to care, and now she was determined to pay it forward every chance she got. Emma's life had become a testament to the idea that small, selfless actions can lead to extraordinary outcomes. Looking back, she often marveled at how one simple moment, a choice to offer kindness to a stranger, had set her on a path she never could have imagined. The diner, Greg's harsh words, the anxiety of losing her job, they all seemed like distant memories now. Her work with the organization had not only given her purpose but also reignited her belief in humanity. She had seen how kindness could transform lives, not just for those who received it, but for those who gave it. One day, as she was preparing for a community event, she received a handwritten letter in the mail. The sender's name made her pause. Barron Trump. Emma unfolded the paper, her hands trembling slightly. The letter was short but heartfelt. Barron thanked her for treating him like a regular person on that day at the diner, for shielding him from the noise of the world when he needed it most. He wrote about how that moment had stuck with him, reminding him of the importance of simple decency in a world often full of judgment. She smiled as she folded the letter and tucked it away in her desk. It was a small reminder of why she did what she did, and the power of choosing compassion over indifference. Emma's journey wasn't without challenges, but it carried a profound message. No act of kindness is ever wasted. Even in moments when the world feels heavy and the reward isn't immediate, those choices matter. They ripple outward in ways we may never see, changing lives, including our own. To everyone watching this story, let Emma's journey serve as a reminder. Kindness can be life-changing. Next time you see someone struggling, offer a helping hand or a kind word. You never know how far it might go.